Sup you phonies, how's it going? Welcome to another video, and today we're gonna make a furry monster. The cool thing is we're not gonna make the monster ourselves. I just discovered this cool trick how you can use a monster which is available online for free and just give it a little extra detail by giving it fur. I'm super excited about that one, especially because I'm not a modeler, I'm not an animator, I don't know how to make a good looking animated monster, like detailed, realistic looking. I don't know how to make these things. The monster you just saw is part of one of my short films I just made. A horror short film is the final scene and it looks very cool. And I'm gonna walk you through step by step so you can make it yourself. A disclaimer though, this shot took me around 6 days to make. Doesn't mean it always takes 6 days to make something like that. No, but it took me 6 days for following reasons. When I tell people, hey, this shot took me 6 days to make, I get two reactions. Either 6 days, wow, I can't believe that takes so long to make. Or, what? Only 6 days? I can't believe you can make something like this in 6 days. Yes, you can, but you have to cheat a little by stealing models, stealing animations, and just giving it a little fur makes it look good. Enough talk, let's get into it. We're using Blender today, and the model I used here is from Mixamo. If you are an Adobe user, you can use Mixamo to download animated models, which look fine from the distance. When it comes closer, it's not that detailed. That's why I had to give it fur. And this is the model I was using. Just a little monster walking. And as you can see, those here are my hair particles. Obviously, that's not what it's going to look like when it's rendered for a few reasons. I also gave it children of hair. That means I have a certain amount of hair particles, but also interpolated hair in addition to that, which we only see in the actual render. Anyways, let's get started from scratch. Here I have a fresh Blender scene. I just gave my little meow some hair just to refresh my memory how to make that. And here in the upper viewport we can see what it would look like rendered. It's already pretty cool, but again, let's start from scratch. Let's delete meow, we don't need him anymore. If you just want to use a regular model, let's say you want to have a sphere, and you can give this hair particles also, but I think it is a little more interesting if we actually have an animated model so you can see the workflow and the problems that comes with it. But be careful. Hair particles take a lot of computer power. I don't have the fastest computer in the world here, and it is kind of slow. So if you don't have the fastest computer either, you might want to render in Eevee. I'm working in cycles here, but just a disclaimer. But still, most computers would be able to handle that. So I downloaded already an FBX of an animated monster. I'm just gonna import it on import FBX. In case you remember, this is the monster I was using for my Halloween post. It's just a dancing guy, and it might not make sense that he has hair, but that's fine. It's just for tutorial purposes. And now we have to give him some hair. What we're gonna do is we select our mesh here, okay? Not the bones, not nothing, just the mesh. We just select it. Now on the right, we're gonna go to particle properties. This is what it looks like. Then we click on plus. Now we gave it a particle system. If we just play this, we see, okay, it's just emits particles. Obviously not what we want. We're gonna click here. Instead of an emitter, we make it hair. Now when we scroll back, we see something already happened. When you play it, it's just hair sticking out of him. Again, not what we want, but we are getting closer. After clicking on hair, click on advanced. That gives us a little more freedom in the animation. So what else do we need? I'm gonna go down with the number of hair particles, and that number really depends on your scene. I can't tell you how high this number has to be. It really depends on your scene, but just a rule of thumb, the fewer hairs, the faster your render is gonna be. Awesome. Hair length, same thing. It depends on your scene how long you want this hair to be. If you just want a furry monster, you might want to keep it by 0.5 or so. You can see now how long it actually is depending on your model, and that's probably even too long. Let's go 0.25. Okay, this is our length now. I hope you can see that, and it should be okay. Now under hair dynamics, you want to click that on. So now you can see already the hair actually has some gravity and it falls down, and that's basically the most important things you need to do. I also turn on rotation just to have a little more smoother movement, but that's basically it. Let's crank up the let's go down to the children, click on interpolated. Now it just interpolates more hair particles, even though we only have 200 hairs. Now we just can increase this number, let's say 500, and now it's gonna have more hair. Okay, just for funsies, I'm gonna find like a good frame. Let's do this one. I'm gonna render a frame and see what it's gonna look like. We have a rendered frame, and this is what it looks like. And the thing is, our hair is gonna take the color of your actual model, what we don't want. And let's fix that. Let's say we want our hair to be, I don't know. I know this scene doesn't make any sense, but let's just play around. We're gonna give it like blonde hair. Let's go in our shader editor. Here I have it here on my left hand side. This is the material of my actual model, but we don't want to manipulate that. We want to give it a different one. So I click on plus, have a new slot, give it a new material, delete the principled BSDF, Shift A for a new one, and just type in hair, principled hair BSDF, plug this into surface. Nothing is going to change yet. For that, we need to go to render on our right hand side, and under material, we click on the material we just made, we just created. Let's give it a name, hair material. In order to actually see something, let's make this very bright. Let's make it blonde yellow. Now in this view, we can already see, okay, this hair is blonde now. Okay, let's go through the settings here real quick and see what could be important. The good thing about those modifiers and particle systems is that most of those settings you don't even need to touch. It doesn't really matter if you emit from vertices, faces, or volume. It doesn't really matter. I usually just keep it on faces. Jittered or random doesn't make a big difference, so you really don't need to worry about these things. When we click on hair dynamics, we have the quality steps, collisions, quality, but if you leave that on default, you're probably on the safe route here. Rotation, you can increase the randomness a little. Randomness is always good if you just try to have it more interesting. One though is very interesting, it's the kink and the hair shape, and those to dial in takes a very long time, or it took me a long time. If you don't care about that much, then probably not, but there's different kink types. For example, when we look at our hair here, and right now nothing's selected, let's click on curl, then our hair is going to be curled. And for my original monster, I use braid. Don't ask me why, it just gave me the best results. And then you can adjust the hair shape, play with the strand shape, diameter, root, tip. So basically it makes the tip a little thicker or thinner. That's what it all does. And I really recommend that you play around with these settings the way I did, because I could explain to you now what all these things really do, but you're not gonna learn it if you just copy paste all my numbers. So really just play around with those things until you get some cool results, and you're gonna understand better why you get those results. Again, if you just copy paste what I did here, you're not gonna learn anything, so I don't recommend it. But just in case you do want to copy paste everything I did, let me see. These are here all my settings I use for the original monster, so you can just copy paste everything I did. So I clicked on hair, advanced, number of hairs 1000, seeds 0, hair length 0.5, segments 5, faces everything is the same, quality of steps 5, 0, collisions quality 2. I didn't change anything here, nothing here. This is just the length of my particle simulation. That really depends on the length of your scene. And click on rotation, didn't change any values here, didn't change any values in the physics settings, forces, nothing. I didn't change anything here, I didn't change anything here. And here you give your hair your material, which looks just like here on my left hand side. It's a principled hair BSDF. The roughness is 0.259. This is the kind of color I use, regular roughness. Now let's go back to our settings. Viewport display is not important. You can disable the emitter if you want to in the viewport display. Under children, display amount is 10, render amount is 500, so that's important. When you wonder, hey, it's not really showing up that I have more, it's because the display amount is just 10, just for render time purposes. And actual render amount is what we're gonna see in the final render. That's why you have to keep rendering frames to see what it's actually gonna look like. Under length I had 0.5, threshold 0, seed 0, parallel 0, blah blah blah. Didn't change anything here. Clumping is an important one. 0.8 is what I had. Shape is 0. Didn't change anything here, I believe. Here again I use braid, amplitude is 0.2 meters, clump 1, flatness 0.5, frequency 2, shape 0. Here's shape 0.4, diameter root 0.1, tip is 0.5, diameter scale is 0.02, and close tip. And I didn't change anything else here, just in case you want to copy my settings. But now when we look at this guy, it's already pretty cool. And now if I want to have more, I go back to my emission numbers. It really depends. You don't have to go too high on your emission numbers. I wouldn't go higher than 500 or maybe 1000 if you have a strong computer, because you can always add more through the children, and then it's going to render faster. But you just have to find a happy medium. Here you can see how much hair we have, but really you can only see the final result when you render this thing. That's why it takes so long, because you always have to render a frame. It's going to take a few minutes or seconds if you have a stronger computer. But yeah, that's basically how you do those things, and it is pretty simple. Now, before you hit render or anything, what you always want to do is bake your simulation. Here under cache, you can select the start frame, the end frame, the steps, and here I always recommend to start the simulation before your actual animation starts. Why? Let me hit on bake real quick and you'll see. When I go in the very first frame, the hair is going to stick out for the very first frame. Then it's just going to fall when the simulation, when the bake started. And you might not want that. It might not matter, but usually if you have long hair and it's gonna fall first, you want to start the simulation maybe 10 frames or even more before your animation starts. Now we can go to any frame we rendered. One thing you always want to do, especially with those Mixamo models, you click on your model, go on object data properties, go on normals, and turn off auto smooth, because sometimes I have those glitches, like especially with the motion blur, which I actually can just turn off right now. I don't need motion blur right now. It is turned off. Okay, all good. Again, so I highly recommend that you play around with these settings until you get the results you want. Obviously, you should use a monster which makes sense to be furry, not like this guy, a guy who's wearing a suit. Makes no sense. But that's what I do here, making things which don't make any sense. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna render this real quick. Real quick, it's probably gonna take like 10 hours or so, but then you can see the results like right now. If you have any suggestions how to make this better, please let me know, because I obviously don't know what I'm doing, but hey, I'm here to figure it out myself. So thank you so much for watching and enjoy the final animation. Toodaloo.